Hi, I'm Pat and welcome back to the channel. I recently received an error on the dash of the BMW i8 that said my vehicle was due for a vehicle check. Well, let's take a look at that and see if we can clear it here in the garage. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and ringing that bell for notifications as I post BMW i8 content often, and I'm hoping this video may save you a trip to the dealer. So if I press the start stop button and I take a look here on the display, of course I have that yellow icon that service is due and it says in 110 miles. So I want to find out exactly what that means. Let's go over here to the iDrive display, and if we go into vehicle info and vehicle status and service required, we can see that there's a vehicle check due and it says 110 miles. Well, if I click on that, I see exactly what they're talking about here. They want me to come in and have my vehicle checked at the service center. And I know this is true because I also got a phone call from the service center. They want about $300 to do this vehicle check. I took a look at the service manual. Doesn't look that hard. Let's do it here in the garage and save ourselves a couple $100. I have the new TIS website up and running here with the BMW i8 information. So this comes directly from the service manual. If I go ahead and search on vehicle check, then we could see exactly what article we need to use here in order to perform this repair service, vehicle check. And it looks pretty simple. So first off, it's saying check the horn, the headlight flashers, and the hazard warning flashers. So let's do that real quick. All right, here we're in the car. We're going to test the horn. That works. And then we'll go ahead and just press the start stop button, and we can test the headlight flashers, which is pulling and just temporarily, engaging. So we have a blue indication on the dash, and we do have the flashers there. That's good. And we also need to test the hazard lights. So if we go ahead and press the hazard button, then we can see the hazard lights are flashing as well. So taking a look at the next step in the service manual, we have check instrument and inscription lighting, the passenger compartment and glove box lighting, and the blower. So if we just click on that, it'll go ahead and give us even a clearer description of what they want us to check here. I was unfamiliar with what inscription lighting was, but obviously those are the things that light up on the different buttons and switches that you control. It's just making sure that the lighting inside those controls is lit up. So that makes sense. We're also going to check the interior lighting, the glove box, the trunk, and we're also going to adjust the blower motor to see if we're getting air. Let's do that. Before I hop in the car again, let me just go ahead and pop the trunk. And once we're inside here, we should have some lighting, and we do. We definitely have a trunk light there. Let's hop in the car and do the rest of the checks. So press our start stop button, and then we can go ahead and take a look, and all our ambient lighting is good. Are the lights on the controls okay? If I go ahead and turn my headlights on, am I going to have a problem where lights like this aren't lit up? Of course they are. So that's our inscription lighting. That looks good. And of course we're getting good lighting here on the display, on some of the accent lights here on the door panels. Yeah, that's looking great. So I'll go ahead and pop the glove compartment open. That light lights up just fine. And then I'll go ahead and test the blower motor by turning this all the way up here. Yep, definitely getting air coming out of there. So I'll go back down, and that completes this check. The lighting system, and this is outside the car. This is important to make sure that anybody else that's on the road with us can see whether or not we're turning, stopping, accelerating, etc. So all of these things are listed here under check lighting system. So we have the headlights, the rear lights, the associated indicator lights. We would perform a headlight adjustment if we had that opportunity, but yeah, these are automatic adjusting headlights in this car. So if they're not working properly, we're going to tell when we try to go down the road. So we can skip measuring the actual height of the headlights. We're going to check the headlight flasher for the correct operation, which we had done already, so this is redundant. We're going to check the turn signals, the hazard warning lights. We've already done that. We're going to check the brake lights. We're going to check the reversing lights and the number plate lights as well. And then the front and rear fog lights, well, we don't have them in the i8, so that's not important for us. And any other ground lights or outside door handle lights, well, that's not an issue for us in the i8, but we do have some lights that are built into the door, so when we do open the door, it does illuminate our path. Now, in order to get in and out of the vehicle while it's on, we want to go ahead and just latch the seatbelt. That way the car thinks that I'm still in it and I can turn the car on and exit the vehicle. Now that that's complete, I can go ahead and turn the vehicle on, and then I can start by engaging my turn signals. So if I go ahead and engage a turn signal, I can look at the front and the back of my garage and I can see that my turn signal is working correctly. And then again, for the other side, I can verify just by looking around my garage that my turn signal is working appropriately. By putting my foot on the brake, I should have 3 tail lights back there, and I do. And finally, if I go ahead and just turn the vehicle on and put it in reverse, I get those backup lights. So that looks good. I'll put it back in park. And in order to check the number plate lights, of course my headlights are on. If I turn them off, then of course the number plate light goes back off. So that's working exactly the way it should. Our next step in the process is seat belts. Condition of the belt strap, the function of the automatic reel, the locking mechanism, etc. We want to make sure that they're in good working condition, and we're looking for damage here. So if there's any issues with this, of course, we would want to replace the seat belts, and that's because safety is paramount. Let's just take a look at one seat belt and make sure everything is functioning exactly the way it should. We previously buckled our seat belt. You can go ahead and just leave that engaged. I'm going to pull the seat belt all the way out until it locks. And it retracts just fine. I don't see any damage to the seatbelt, and the little button that's down here and the slide, everything looks exactly the way it should directly from the factory. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I can feed it all the way into the retractor, and I'm also going to pull it out. The next thing I'm going to check for is to see if the seatbelt actually locks up the way it's supposed to. One quick tug and this seatbelt stops. This is exactly what's required, especially if you're in an accident, to stop your body from moving forward. That checks out perfectly. Of course, we'll check the rest of the seat belts and make sure that they're functioning exactly the same way. Our next step is to go ahead and check the windshield wipers and the washer fluid. Now, I already topped up the washer fluid the last time I worked on the car, so I don't need to worry about that. But if you need to top it up, here's exactly where you access it and how you fill it. So right down here in the cowling, there's a little plastic cover. If you pull up on it, there's a little hole right there, and that's where you would put a funnel, and then you could fill up your windshield washer fluid. I'm going to go ahead and reinstall the cap because I know I'm good to go. I also see that my windshield wipers are actually in good condition. I previously checked them and they're A-OK. If you need to change your wipers, there's a link in the description below, so check that video out if you need to change your wipers. I'm just going to go ahead and turn the vehicle back on. I'm going to put my windows up, because I know that once I start squirting fluid everywhere, I have an opportunity of getting wet. So all that's good to go. I can then go ahead and pull the stock towards me, and it should go ahead and clean the window. There we go. That's working appropriately. And of course, I can move the stock up 1 or 2. And of course, we can also adjust the speeds. I'm going to get this intermittent. If I move it up again, I can go into low, or even in the high. Well, of course, it's not sensing any rain, so it's not going to go high speed, but we can go ahead and press down and turn these completely off at this point. That's working just great. Good thing I closed those windows. I would have been wet. Our next step is to check the tires, but I'm going to save that because I want to bring the car up on the lifts first because it gives me better access to the tires. Our next section is the engine compartment. And of course, I did a video on how to open the engine compartment and how to check the fluids under there. So link in the description below on how to do that. The other work that's listed here requires us to have the car off the ground. So let's go ahead and put it up on quick jacks and climb under. Now that the car's off the ground, we can check the tires as well as the underbody. Now I did put a jack stand here, and that's because I'm home alone. I don't necessarily need to use the jack stand because the quick jacks are very safe. It just gives me an extra sense of security. So let's climb under and start with the tires. All right, let's start by checking the tread depth. Now I have a tread depth gauge here that as you push it down, it'll show green, yellow, or red, depending on whether the tire's in good condition, it's close to replacement, or it needs to be replaced. And the way this works is you just want to make sure it's pushed down. So if we go ahead and find a high point here and push straight down, we can then read exactly what is on here. And I'm seeing 5 millimeters Or if you want 30 seconds, looks like it's about between 6 and 7 seconds. So you can see that right here on the 30-second side, and here's the millimeter side. So I'm going to do the same exact thing with the middle of the tire. I'm going to go ahead and find the deepest part here, push down, and I am seeing 6 millimeters. There's 6 millimeters of depth here, and if I measure the very inside of the tire, I'm seeing 5 millimeters. So this is telling me I'm running this particular tire without enough pressure in it. So I might want to increase the pressure in this tire a pound or two, because right now it's set to factory standard, but this particular tire may require a little bit more air pressure. And that would mean that it's going to ride more in the middle of the tire to balance out the lowness on the sides of the tire. Now I'm going to go ahead and check the front tire and show you exactly what happens on it. So we're going to do the same thing, make sure the plunger is pushed all the way in, and we're going to go ahead and push this down, and we got 6 millimeters here on the outside. Now it's a little bit more difficult to measure the middle of this tire because the gouges are different here in the center. So I'm just going to find the deep spot here. I'll go ahead and measure, and I'm seeing 7 millimeters. So I'm going to go ahead and finally measure the inside, and we have 6 millimeters. So of course these tires are also a little underinflated. I can raise them by a couple pounds, but I'm also noting that the back tires are wearing out quicker than the front tires. And of course, that's pretty typical with a BMW i8. These tires currently have 31,000 miles on them. I forget exactly when I changed them. There'll definitely be a figure below that'll indicate exactly when I swap these out. But they're doing good, so far so good. I just need to put a few extra pounds in both of them to make sure that I continue to have even tread wear across these tires. Of course, while I'm under here, I'm also going to check the sidewalls, give it a spin, and make sure that everything looks great on these tires and that they're currently still serviceable. Our next step in the process is underneath the vehicle. We want to check the brake lines and the connections. We're going to check for tightness, damage, mounting, and correct position. So that means we take a look at the brake calipers from inside the tire here, inside the wheel. And of course, this is where our brake line comes down. And we're just going to make sure that this is in the right position. There's no issues here. There's no cracking on the lines. Everything looks good from this perspective. I'm going to check the other 4 wheels the same way. But while I'm here at this wheel, I'm also going to take a look at the axle boot. So this is the axle boot. We're going to take a look at any other of the rubber pieces here in the suspension mounts to make sure that they're not deteriorating at all. Of course, if we took the wheel off, we could see the other components at the top as well. And we want to check, the other end of the axle, making sure there's no issues there. Any deteriorating parts here. As far as the bushings are concerned, I don't see any issues there. Same with the tie rod end here. This controls your steering, and we don't want to make sure that there's, no cracks. Reach around the boot and feel everything is still flexible, still in good shape. Tie rod end here where it connects up. That rubber's okay. We have our end links here. That's looking good. And of course, I had the wheels off recently, so I took a great examination of all these parts. But when you're definitely under here, you want to look very closely to see, are things deteriorating? Are you seeing oil coming out of places where there shouldn't be? Especially these boots, because when they start to crack, you're going to get a lot of grease coming out of there. So I don't see any brake fluid. Everything looks really good on this wheel. I'm going to do the other wheels, but before I do that, let me just do a quick check of the underbody. And I want to make sure that this underbody panel, now I'm facing the front of the vehicle, this underbody panel's in good shape. Because I know when I took this off, and there's a link in the description, when I took this part of the vehicle apart, as well as, up here where the battery's at. I took this off, and there are electrical components here. So if something catches on this and starts to tear this away, then you could potentially be getting water up into these areas where there shouldn't be water. So you want to make sure that this underbody panel is attached the way it should be in order to protect the underbody of the vehicle. And I decided to come over here to the other wheel, and I'm noticing something that seems strange. This brake caliper is dusty and dirty here, but it's shiny here. That looks like it could potentially be a brake fluid leak. Let's take a closer look. So I found a good location to place the camera, if I can get it snuck back into position here. And here you could see the brake caliper, and there's a little bit of fluid here. It's black. I wonder what's going on there. Now I don't notice it anywhere else. It just seems to be right here. It's on this wire, and it seems to be splattered here. I don't see a leak from where the connection goes from the brake line into the brake caliper. But you know, this is really strange because none of that grease, it looks like, is coming from anywhere else. Let's take a closer inspection at some of the other parts here on this side of the wheel. Of course, I'm seeing a spot here. That's really weird. Well, let's keep looking. Maybe we can find it. And my buddy Evan at Thick Garage, he suggested I go ahead and just turn the wheel to expose more of the axle cover here, the boot, and also massage it. I'll give it a good push. See if I could hear any air going in and out, maybe a small pinhole crack. So I've cleaned everything up. I'm going to drive it around for a few days, and then we'll see if that problem comes back again. So I drove it around for a few hundred miles, and yep, I definitely have a problem. And it looks like the CV boot has a pinhole of some sort because it's got some more grease coming out. Time to have this repaired. This is going to the shop because I'm still under a CPO warranty. The process for the rear is the same as the front. We're going to check everything here, make sure there's no leaks, no problems with brakes, no problems with any of the rubber. Make sure everything's connected the way it should be, both here and on the other side. So everything looked good on that wheel, and everything looks good over here as well. No issues with any fluids or anything that looks out of place. And of course, I gave the components a tug, make sure there's nothing loose. Everything looks great. All right, top side. The next thing I'm going to check is the function of the ball joints. I just have some wood I'm going to stack. Put this back here just to give me a better opportunity to have a good lever here. So I'm going to pull up on this wheel, and of course I have a camera on the other side of the wheel to see if there's any flex or play in any of the ball joints. But I can also look through the wheel, and it feels pretty solid. Awesome. So now I'm also going to rock the wheel this direction and feel if I can feel any play, and this direction. Everything is tight. There's no noise, no movement. I'm going to do this on the other wheels as well. And some of the final checks here include, of course, going on a road test, checking the charging cable and the socket. So I'm going to look on the charging cable and see if there's any cracks or any types of damage. And of course, the same with the end of the charger that plugs into the car. And of course, I use this often, so I know this is working well. And the same holds true, of course, for the charging connector. I use this a lot, so everything looks A-OK. No problems here. I'm going to lower the vehicle from the lift now, and of course, we would take it for a road test and check the steering and the brakes and the transmission and make sure the car is definitely roadworthy. I drive it all the time, so I think I'm good to go. Next thing, we got to reset the CBS system, the acknowledgement on the dash that lets us know that we have to take it in for service. This is complete. Let's clear that. So let's hop back in the i8 and reset the system. So in order to reset the system, we do not put our feet on any pedals. We just press the start-stop button. And there's the service we want to clear. We press and hold this trip reset button for 10 seconds. And it says vehicle check, reset possible. We press and hold for 3 seconds. And it says reset question mark, press and hold for 3 seconds. Reset in progress. Now at 45,000 miles, or in the 8th month of 2024, will be our next vehicle check. And if I come over here and check our vehicle status and come down to service required, everything's green. So we're good to go. All the parts used in today's video, of course, are down in the description, as well as the link to the service manual, so you could also perform the same tasks that I did. It's not that hard, and it'll save you about $300 at the dealer. So why not give it a shot? If you like today's video, please give me a big thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing and ringing that bell for notifications. I'll be posting more BMW i8 content. Thanks for watching, and happy motoring.